was born in Sabine Pass, Texas. My dad was a seaman there, and I was born in 6/15/23, which makes me 92 years old. We moved from there to Shady Acres in the Heights, and I was raised most of the time there, and Mildred was right across the street from me. We went to school together. We went to Hamilton and Reagan. In 1942, I went into the service. They sent me to California first, and I went to Van Nuys, Glendale, and Bakersfield. Then I went to Santa Ana Army Air Base, and they registered me as an airplane mechanic and sent me to the airfield right there closed. And we had P-38s, and I fueled them first and got in and checked them, and maybe 2 months later they put me in the hangar, and I started working on the planes then, P-38s. They were mighty good planes, and they the one thing I didn't like about working on them was the turbine. That was to boost power, and I didn't like to work on it, but I did. Then when you work a mechanic on an airplane, you are not changing all of the stuff out. You checking spark plugs, and there's a lot of things on it that you check. But we don't overhaul engines. Never did. They sent them back and get them overhauled. But we worked on all the engines, throttles and everything like that. They had set up the guns, the guns, bore sighting guns, and getting them ready for the planes. And it's the way they laid out the bullets in the wing. My department was to check engines and how they sound when they're running, and if they didn't miss or anything, spark plugs, they were different than automobile spark plugs. We'd change them, and you might have a little bit in it, a little bit of a miss in it, and you change a plug and it would take it out. And they wanted it to run good. You don't have any trouble in the air when you get in the air. Anyway, I was on a line, what they call a flight line, and we had small buildings, anything to keep warm or keep from getting wet. And it wasn't very much fun doing that. Then they started sending belly tanks over. In the meantime, they took the P-38s away from us and gave us P-51s, which we were very glad. And they started sending us belly tanks. Belly tanks was wrapped in and shipped in plywood. So we took the plywood and build us little shacks out there to keep warm. And it was nice. It was whole lot better than we had it. And we'd get the plane ready, and there was a lot of things to do. There wasn't only me doing it, but somebody else doing it, armor, setting up the guns. My job was to keep the engine going. I never had to overhaul any, but the engines were really good engines. Allison liquid air cooled. They sent me to 2 more schools. Then they sent me back to Florida. And I had taken some training there. Then they sent me back to California. And we got at Bakerfield, we got our orders to go overseas. And I went from there to Camp Shanks, New York, or New Jersey, and they put me on a boat called the Queen Elizabeth. Our planes were in the hold of the boat, and the boat went over and they changed course every 6 minutes. Well, the sub got after us, and they laid that thing over, and we all slid to one side, eating breakfast, oatmeal, and it was kind of rough. So anyway, it took us about 4 days to go over. They had to change course every 6 minutes. And on the boat we had a lot of fun and got together, and we had our assigned room, and we got to Scotland, Glasgow, and unloaded there. Well, when we unloaded, they sent our planes, and we went to a base called Huntington in England. And that was, I think it was about 30 miles from London. We had a base, and we set up to do the planes and get them in air as soon as we could. For 3 days and 3 nights, they wouldn't let us sleep, the Germans. They kept raids going over, and we always got that purple alert, and that's the time that you get out, really. And after I had been over there, say, 6 months, it got worse. They flew their planes over our base at night and keep us awake. They was upset, but they knew everybody in that squadron. We had 3 squadrons, 383rd, 384th, 385th. I was in the 385th squadron, and they have about 10 planes each. And the base was well equipped with everything, but still, the Germans still worried us to death with their night raids. And of course, we went on for months, and then they called an alert for a Normandy landing. Well, we had P-51s. They flew cover for the boys that went in, and we stayed up for 3 weeks, night and day. You go in to get a little bit to eat and come back, sit on the wing and keep your plane ready, and then take off. But it was round the clock they were going. And it took a lot of wind out of us doing that. But we were always afraid of the night raids. At night that they'd call raids. One night they called a, a purple alert, and it happened to be a buzz bomb. That's a V2 rocket, not the big one, the small one. And we heard it when it was over us and then started to sputter and then quit. Well, we thought it could have landed anywhere. I run out to a revetment, got in the revetment, and got just as close as I could to the ground. The revetment didn't have no cover on the top, just the sides, and the bottom was asphalt. So I run into the revetment, and some of the other fellas got in there and we heard it. It stopped. Well, them things, whenever they blow things up, they blow up. They could blow a whole town up. Anyway, we just waited, and a little bit we heard it go off, but it went off out of our territory. It might have killed some people somewhere else, but it missed us. I was more afraid of those things than I believe I was anything. But as far as being over, I done my job. I had a Jeep assigned to me, and I run the ports, and they finally put me in a off the line into technical supply. Well, technical supply was issuing ports, taking them in, and sending them to be repaired. Anything that could be repaired, or an engine change, something like that. And so that's what I did for quite a while. I did that. And then the war got a little less after they had made a Normandy land and they got in. One day I was running an errand to pick up some parts, and I came up to the hangar, and as I came up, this plane came in sideways, like the wind had caught him. He was landing, fixing to land, and there was nothing we could do. He flew right into the hangar and he hit a plane that they were working on, and it happened to be a bomber. A different plane than what we had, but they were working on it. Anyway, it killed, I think, 3 people in that plane. And we just started running towards it to try to get the man out when he hit all this, because it tore a lot of stuff up. And I could tell that his petrol or gasoline was leaking. And we got up, I started up, and another guy, I don't even know him, but he came running up, and we were going to get the pilot out. You could get a handle and jerk that handle, and that canopy would go back. Well, we got on the wing and was trying to get, because it was lopsided, and we were trying to get him out, and a colonel come up and told us that was an order to get off. And he told us the second time real loud, that is an order to get off. So we jumped off. We felt bad. And we just went back, and he never said anything until the plane caught on fire and they put it out. And they got the man out of there. Well, the colonel told us he broke his neck. And sure enough, that's what happened. He did. I guess they know what happens. He hit hard. And anyway, we went on our own, off, both of us, and we felt bad about it. but they put the plane out and hauled it away, what was left of it, to the boneyard, as we called it. That's where the parts, they took parts off of planes, but most of them were tore up. And that's where they had it. We had a lot of planes come in, and they had a phone line set up real high. And the planes coming back from a raid, they were always hyper. They'd try to cut that phone line in two. Well, they cut it a lot of times. They cut it. They just put it back up. It was more or less put up there for them to do that. And we had a couple of them come down, got too close to the ground, crashed, tore up a plane, and one of them, it was so bad that it just mashed the pilot all to pieces. I was sick about that. And then on the other one, they got one out. One of the big things about our planes was this fellow by name of, his first name was Jack. He was a cocky little pilot. And he would come out and talk to us, and he went on a raid and they shot him down. Well, we thought he was maybe got killed. After maybe 2 or 3 months, he came back. The French underground got him and took care of him. And he told us this. He said that he went on a raid with them, and they caught a weapons carrier with three Germans in it. They caught them, and they took them into a building, and they were going to kill them. Well, Jack didn't like to do that, but he was along with them, and they saved his life. So they picked him out, and they told him the private that there was a private, I think a corporal, and then an officer, and they picked the officer to be hanged first. And he told them, "No, I'm an officer. You don't hang me, hang your private." He said, "No, you hang according to ranks. You're the highest." So they hung all three of them. Now that's what the guy, Jack, told us. After, I can't say after the war, but after maybe 2 months or so, he came back, and they paid him off in money, his back pay. He got back pay while he was there, and he had a big stack of it. And he said, he had a long beard also. He said, I'm going to have a good time, and I want you to call all you guys come with him. So we went with him, had a good time. But we were so glad to see him. And he had grown a little mustache. And but he was okay. He didn't get, in fact is it looked like maybe he gained a little weight. But he was we really did like that. But he was friendly to everybody. Some of the pilots are just, they stuck up. They just, well, I'm a bigger shot than you are. They called us in what we call the clubhouse. And they had a talker there, and some of the others, and they were telling us about some of the boys in the infantry came on, to take the place of some of them that they had, the boys had been changed. Well, in this deal, they sent me, got my orders to go to France. And they stuck a sergeant stripe in my pocket. And the first sergeant told me, he said, you get sergeant for this. Well, when I left, they had put my name in because I was going to France. They took it away from me. They took sergeant stripes. Well, I said, I'll get them back over there. But I didn't. And I came out, I should have been a staff sergeant, but I wasn't. I come out as a corporal. That's all I had. I never made any more than corporal, but I took responsibility for staff sergeant. So my part was just about done till he sent me to France in a B-17. I flew over Le Havre, and that place was tore up like you wouldn't believe. There was so much junk in this, and I guess the port, they call it. It was all over junk, ships sunk. I went to the Riviera, and one day I came in, and one guy told me they were taking names for the guy that wanted to go home. I said, I want to go. I was supposed to got a stripe. So I went in there and got the captain. I thought he was a top sergeant, but he was a captain. And when I walked in, I didn't salute him because I thought it was just a guy that worked in the office. I thought he was first sergeant because that's what we had at the other place. But the captain got on me and told me, don't you know how to salute? I told him, yes sir I do. I'm sorry. I gave him a salute and he told me then. Got my credentials out and looked at him and said, well, yeah, you got more than enough points to go home. I said, well, I want to go. So they sent me home. I got out of the service in 1945, I think it was Thanksgiving. I got back home. I came back from France on the Coaldale Victory. That was a little bitty ship. We run into a storm, and the only place you could get to keep from getting sick was right in the middle of the ship. That's where I went. We got back and came to back to Camp Shanks, and they say New York, but I think it's in New Jersey. And I got papers for discharge, and went to let's see, we went to Tyler, Texas, and I went home. And that was the end of my career in the Army, Air Force. My dad moved back to Shady Acres, built that little house there. We had an acre of ground, and when I was overseas, my sister wrote me a letter and asked me could they have the house. If they could have the house, I'd take the other half acre, which was next to it, didn't have nothing on. Her daddy built that house for us, that picture you see back there. And we got married after I got out of the service. Mildred and I started going together, and we got married, and been married ever since. 69 years this year. And I was trying to think of anything else. Most of it after that was working for Goodyear. I got top 10 citation out there. That little round thing up there is my top 10. It's an honor to get that. And then I retired after that. And we stayed in Houston and Spring Branch for maybe a couple of years, maybe 3 years. And we had this house built up here and moved up here. And loved it. We get up every morning, we thank the Lord that we're still here.
All right.
So that's just about it.